I feel like there's one universal thing that all high school students are always gonna experience, and that's working a terrible minimum wage job during high school. Now, fun fact, I was actually one of the last people in my friend group to actually get a job. That's just how hard it was to get a job in the first place, but when I did, I was ecstatic, and that very first place I got a job at was Chipotle. Now, let me tell you, I was hyped as hell. I love Chipotle so much, so the fact that I got to not only work there, but eat free Chipotle every single day that I worked, oh, I was ready, bro. Now, I'll be fully transparent, the first 4 months that I worked there were actually really good. I think the management was going super well, the flow was going great, all the coworkers I had were actually really chill people, but those last 4 months at Chipotle were probably the worst 4 months I've ever had working at a job. First of all, the management just completely slipped like those middle months. I don't know what happened, but from month 4 to 5 that I worked there, the management completely just went down the gutter. Like, the store manager would not even come into the store anymore. He used to go into the store 4 or 5 times a week to check up on us, see how we're doing, you know, do what a store manager does. But for those last 3 to 4 months, he literally never showed up to the store. I saw him once or twice for 20 seconds, bro. So because of that, it was only the shift leads that were running the store. I don't know if you guys have ever worked at Chipotle either, but normally there's like a store manager and then there's shift leads. I never saw my store manager. It was only the shift leads, and they were doing everything in the store. And because they were the ones leading, they had me, at the time 16 years old, working to almost 12 a.m., 1 a.m. even. Like, illegal hours is insane. Mind you, I didn't even have like my permit or my license yet, let alone a car. So I had to like rely on all my coworkers driving me home, or even my team leads sometimes. Like, it was so dumb, bro. But there's a day that I worked at Chipotle that I'll never forget because of just how awfully managed and how terrible it went. And that was National Burrito Day 2023. If you don't know what National Burrito Day is at Chipotle, if you walk into Chipotle with a jersey, I'm pretty sure it is whatever team that your state represents. For Colorado, it's the Avalanche, our hockey team. You can basically buy a burrito and get one free. And that's pretty much the best deal you'll ever get at Chipotle. So obviously, there's a bunch of people going to Chipotle on that day. When I walked into work, we had 4 people scheduled for the entire store. And normally we have around 8 to 9 people. The way my store worked is we normally had around 3 people on the line, 2 people chefing it up in the back, 1 person, sometimes maybe 2 doing the online orders, and 1 person doing the dishes. So at most we had 8, 7 people. We had 4 for the entire store this day. And we had so many customers that we had a line wrapping outside and around the store. Yeah, we got a lot of angry customers. I got a lot of people giving me nasty shit that day. It was probably the worst day I ever worked, and I actually stayed till the end. There were about 2 associates that day that actually left early. Yeah, I don't know how they let that slide. I'm gonna be completely real with you. I don't know how we let that slide. No one got fired from that, by the way. So, yeah, 10 out of 10. And then that same year, in June, I actually was leaving to go to Florida for about a month to go see my dad and visit him, also to see my cousins, and I actually let them know of this before they hired me, and they gave me the okay and told me I'll be good to leave for the month, I'll come back and I'll be able to work again. When I came back from my vacation, the old management team that I worked with was completely gone. I asked if I could get my job back, and I didn't get my job back. I was so upset, bro. Now, I wasn't upset that I got fired from working at Chipotle. Like, I'm not mad that I don't have to work there anymore. That's a godsend. But I was just really mad that the job I was promised to me was taken away from me just like that. And I couldn't get it back. And that left me jobless for about another 8 months into my senior year. Now, when senior year rolled around, like I just said, I was jobless for pretty much most of it and had pretty much no money. It sucked, I'm not gonna lie with you. But thank God I had some W friends that actually paid for a lot of my meals that I was hopefully able to pay back. Love y'all boys, you know who I'm talking to. And when March rolled around in my senior year, I was finally able to get my second job, and it was at another food place, but this time it was at a Wetzel's Pretzels instead of a Walmart. Now, just like Chipotle, it was like the first 3 months were incredible, and then my last 3 months sucked. But this time it really wasn't much of management, it was more of low interest. Now, what do I mean by lower interest? Do I mean that I just no longer wanted to work at Wetzel's? Well, yeah, it was really fucking boring, but also because it just had lower interest from the customers overall. When I did my interview at Wetzel's, the place was still being built, so like it wasn't fully finished, and if I got the job there, which obviously I did, I was gonna work there on opening day. And let me tell you, that first opening week was so good. I had customers left and right, I was actively busy, and at the time, I actually had another few associates working with me. We had 1 person always working on the pretzels. We had one person working on the register and one person in the middle kind of helping between the baker and giving the cashier all the food. And it ran like that for 3 months, and it was just amazing. I barely had any bad customer interactions. Like, the only bad interactions I had was with the Walmart staff when bad shit would happen in the Walmart. I would see fights happen all the time. It was really funny. But then those last 3 months rolled around, and man, were they the slowest, most boring work hours I've ever worked in my life. It started with cut hours. Obviously, when business gets slower, they're gonna have to cut hours. So it started with a whole person getting cut in general. Remember when I told you there was 3 of us working a shift? Well, now there was only 2, and the only other person I worked with only spoke Spanish. Yes, I took Spanish-speaking classes for 5 years. Did I pay attention? Hell no. But we still made it work, and we were able to close the store every single night. But I'm just telling you, like, for 3 months, I would literally clock in, I would stand there, and I would sell food to about 10 to 12 people on average, and I'm working a 4-hour shift. That's like 3 people an hour. I was so incredibly bored. I would start counting. I would start seeing how many people that would walk past me. I would start seeing how many people I could recognize. Like, it was boring, bro. So it got so boring that I eventually had to quit, bro. 2 days after I graduated high school, I realized I'm not making enough money. I'm working 8 hours a week as a graduate. I need to quit this job. And after I quit Wetzel's Pretzels, I was again jobless for about 6 months. But then I finally got another job that was recommended to me by my mom. And it was actually the restaurant that she worked at and served at. And she recommended me the job. And I actually got a job as a food runner there. And that one sucked. And to not dox this restaurant because it's more local owned, I'm just gonna call it Chili's for the sake of it. Now, I only worked here for about 4 months if I'm gonna keep it real with you, and that's just because they cut my hours way too much and treated me way less than what I was worth. I'm gonna be real. Now, this Chili's that I worked at was actually pretty higher end up. I wouldn't say obviously it's top of the top, but I'd definitely say it's middle high end. It was definitely a little bit more expensive than your average restaurant. And the town that I was working at was like a human hotspot, mainly more of like an older person hotspot. There was a bunch of plays here and a bunch of drinking events. I'm talking 1 drinking event a week almost. So I'm sure you can kind of write a concept of what type of people were coming into this restaurant weekly. And also, because my mom was like a super loved waitress here, I was really liked off the get-go by a lot of the people there, which I do want to appreciate. Not the managers, obviously, but a lot of like the kitchen staff loved me. I used to get high with this guy named Tyson in the freezers all the time. If you're watching this, bro, shout out to you. You deadass made those shifts easier. Like, it's so weird. Normally people shit on like the kitchen staff and love the more like upfront staff, the people that worked at the bar, but I feel like it was completely swapped here. The people that worked at the bar were like major and the owners and managers were terrible. They didn't know how to run it half the time. The downslope pretty much happened on my 2nd month working there. I was working here part-time 20 hours a week with a $15 base pay plus tips, and looking back at that, that is awful. I was not making enough money, to be honest with you, and it was a weekly pay, so I was walking home every week with at most $300, $400. Now, the 2nd month I was working there was about January, and that's when Christmas and everything ends, so the rush at the restaurant was just low. Like, not only was I getting cut hours, like only working 3 hours a shift now, but now they were cutting full days from me. So instead of working 4 days a week, I was working 3 days a week, and then I went from 3 days a week to 2 days a week, so and so. I was literally coming back home each week with $38 checks and like $40 in tips. I was making no money, bro. And on top of that, they were making me do the most work out of any food runner on certain nights. I'm not talking every night. On some nights, every food runner was working equally. On some, more were definitely working more than others. And mind you, my position was a food runner, but they treated me like I was a hostess and made me do all the hostess things. So I was wrapping silverware, I was helping people get seated, I was helping people at the bar, like I was dead ass doing stuff that weren't even in my role. And the funniest thing is that the people who own the restaurant would come in sometimes, see that I'm doing something that a hostess should doing, and put me right back on the food running just to have me do something that a host should be doing the very next day. Like, when it came to communicating with me, it was non-existent. I swear to God. I guess to summarize this Yap, in my personal experience, part-time jobs, especially when it comes to food, are just not really gonna treat you with that much respect. And obviously that doesn't include every single fast food job. There's people out there that love their jobs. There's people that have great establishments. But in my personal experiences, food jobs have just been the worst ones by far. Comment down below any good or terrible fast food job experiences that you may have experienced while working at one. If you made it this far in the video, I appreciate every single one of you. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this Yap session, and I'll see y'all next time. Have a great one, guys. Stay safe.